In school drawing classes, I also kept secret my ghost style techniques and continued to paint as before in the conventional idiom of pretty things. To Takaichi and him alone, I could display my easily wounded sensibilities. I did not hesitate now to show him my self portraits. He was very enthusiastic, and I painted two or three more, plus a picture of a ghost, earning from Takaichi the prediction, "You'll be a great painter some day." Not long afterwards, I went up to Tokyo. On my forehead were imprinted the two prophecies uttered by half-wit Takaichi, that I would be "fallen for," and that I would become a great painter. I wanted to enter an art school, but my father put me into college, intending eventually to make a civil servant out of me. This was the sentence passed on me, and I, who have never been able to answer back, dumbly obeyed. At my father's suggestions, I took the college entrance examinations a year early, and I passed. By this time I was really quite weary of my high school by the sea and the cherry blossoms. Once in Tokyo, I immediately began life in a dormitory, but the squalor and violence appalled me. This time I was in no mood for clowning. I got the doctor to certify that my lungs were affected. I left the dormitory and went to live in my father's town house in Ueno. Communal living had proved quite impossible for me. It gave me chills just to hear such words as the ardor of youth or youthful pride. I could not I could but not by any stretch of the imagination soak myself in college spirit. Relatable. The classrooms and the dormitory seemed like the dumping grounds of distorted sexual desires, and even my virtually perfected antics were of no use there. Exactly like pretty damn relatable. When the diet was not in season, and my father spent only a week or two of the month at the house, while he was away, there would be just three of us in the rather imposing mansion, an elderly couple who looked after the premises and myself. I frequently cut classes, but not because I felt like sightseeing in Tokyo. It looks as if I shall end my days without ever having seen the Meiji Shrine, the statue of Kusunoki Masahige, or the tombs of the 47 Ronin. Instead, I would spend whole days in the house reading and painting. When my father was in town, I set out for school promptly every morning, although sometimes I actually went to an art class given by a painter in Hongo, and practiced sketching for 3 or 4 hours at a time with him. Having been able to escape from the college dormitory, I felt rather cynically, and this may have been my own bias, that I was now in a rather special position. Even if I attended lectures, it was more like an auditor than a regular student. Attending classes became all the more tedious. I had gone through elementary and high schools and was now in college without ever having been able to understand what was meant by the school spirit. I never even tried to learn the school songs. Before long, a student at the art class was to initiate me into the mysteries of the drink, cigarettes, prostitutes, pawnshops, and left-wing thought. A strange combination, but it actually happened that way. This student's name was Masayo Hiroki. He Masao, I think is how I'm supposed to pronounce that. Masao Hiroki. He had been born in downtown Tokyo, was 6 years older than myself, and was a graduate of a private art school. Having no atelier at home, he used to attend the art class I frequented, where he was supposedly continuing his study of oil painting. One day, when we still barely knew each other by sight, we hadn't as yet exchanged a word. He suddenly said to me, "Can you lend me 5 yen?" I was so taken aback that I ended up by giving him the money. "That's fine," he said. "Now for some liquor. You're my guest." I couldn't very well refuse, and I was dragged off to a cafe near the school. This marked the beginning of our friendship. "I've been noticing you for a while. There, that bashful smile. That's the special mark of the promising artist. Now, as a pledge of our friendship, bottoms up." He called one of the waitresses to our table. "Isn't he a handsome boy? You mustn't fall for him now. I'm sorry to say it, but ever since he appeared in our art class, I've only been the second handsomest." Hiroki Hiroki was swarthy, but his features were regular and, most unusual for an art student, he always wore a neat suit and a conservative necktie. His hair was pomaded and parted in the middle. The surroundings were unfamiliar to me. I kept folding and unfolding my arms nervously, and my smiles now were really bashful. In the course of drinking 2 or 3 glasses of beer, however, I began to feel a strange lightness of liberation. Uh-oh. I started. "I've been thinking I'd like to enter a real art school." "Don't be silly. They're useless. Schools are useless. The teachers who immerse themselves in nature, the teachers who show profound sympathy for nature." I felt not the least respect for his opinions. I was thinking, he's a fool and his paintings are rubbish, but he might be a good person for me to go out with. For the first time in my life I had met a genuine city good for nothing. No less than myself, though in a different way, he was entirely removed from the activities of the human beings of the world. We were of one species, if only in that we were both disoriented. At the same time, there was a basic difference in us. He operated without being conscious of his of his farcicality, or, for that matter, without giving any recognition to the misery of that farcicality. I despised him as one fit only for amusement, a man with whom I associated for that sole purpose. At times I even felt ashamed of our friendship, but in the end, as the result of going out with him, even Hiroki proved too strong for me. At first, however, I was convinced that Horiki, I think. Yeah, it's Horiki was a nice fellow, an unusually nice fellow, and despite my habitual dread of human beings, I relaxed my guard to the extent of thinking that I had found a fine guide to Tokyo. To tell the truth, when I first came to the city, I was afraid to board a streetcar because of the conductor. I was afraid to enter the Kabuki theater for fear of the usherettes standing along the sides of the red carpeted staircase at the main entrance. I was afraid to go into a restaurant because I was intimidated by the waiters furtively hovering behind me waiting for my plate to be emptied. Most of all, I dreaded paying a bill. My awkwardness when I handed over the money after buying something did not arise from any stinginess, but from excessive tension, excessive embarrassment, excessive uneasiness, and apprehension. My eyes would swim in my head. The whole world grew before me, so that I felt half out of my mind. There was no question of bargaining. Not only did I often forget to pick up my change, but I quite frequently forgot to take home the things I had purchased. It was quite impossible for me to make my way around Tokyo by myself. I had no choice but to spend whole days at a time lolling about the house. So I turned my money over to Horiki, and the two of us went out together. He was a great bargainer. This perhaps earned him the ranking of expert in pleasure seeking. He displayed unusual proficiency in spending minimal sums of money with maximal effect. His talents extended to getting wherever he wanted in the shortest possible time, without ever having recourse to taxis. He used by turns as seemed appropriate, the streetcar, the bus, and even steam launches in the river. He gave me a practical education. Thus, if we stopped in the morning at a certain restaurant on our way home from a prostitute's and had a bath with our meal, it was a cheap way of experiencing the sensation of living luxuriously. He also explained that beef with rice or skewered chicken, the sort of dishes you can get at a roadside stand, are cheap but nourishing. He guaranteed that nothing got you drunker quicker than brandy. At any rate, as far as the bill was concerned, he never caused me to feel the least anxiety or fear. Another thing which saved me when with Horiki was that he was completely uninterested in what his listener might be thinking, and could pour forth a continuous stream of nonsensical chatter 24 hours a day, in whichever direction the eruption of his passions led. It may have been that his passions consisted in ignoring the feelings of his listener. His loquacity ensured that there would be absolutely no. You know what's funny is that word, loquacity. I've never seen it used like that. I've seen it used as loquacious, right? Which means chatty. I've never seen loquacity. I'm not even sure if I'm loquacity. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but yeah, I only know the word loquacious, and I've read this book before. I probably forgot this, but yeah, I totally forgot about the existence of the word loquacity. I've never really came across it anywhere but here before. Ensured that there would be absolutely no danger of our falling into uncomfortable silences when our pleasure had fatigued us. In dealings with other people, I had always been on my guard lest those frightful silences occur, but since I was naturally slow of speech, I could only starve them off. I could only stave them off by a desperate recourse to clowning. However, however, that stupid Horiki, quite without realizing it, was playing the part of the clown, and I was under no obligation to make appropriate answers. It sufficed if I merely let the stream of his words flow through my ears, and once in a while commented with a smile, "Not really." I soon came to understand that drink, tobacco, and prostitutes were all excellent means of dissipating, even for a few moments, my dread of human beings. I came even to feel that if I had to sell every last possession to obtain these means of escapes, it would be well worth it. That would make you an addict. I never could think of prostitutes as human beings or even as women. Wow, what a surprise. They seemed more like imbeciles or lunatics, but in their arms I felt absolute security. I could sleep soundly. It was pathetic how utterly devoid of greed they really were, and perhaps because they felt for me something like an affinity for their kind, these prostitutes always showed me a natural friendliness which never became oppressive. They treat everybody like that, bro. Friendliness with no ulterior motive. Friendliness stripped of high-pressure salesmanship, for someone who might never come again. Some nights I saw these imbecile lunatic prostitutes with the halo of Mary. I went to them to escape from my dread of human beings, so to seek a night of repose, but in the process of diverting myself with these kindred prostitutes, I seem to have before I was acquired before I was aware of it a certain offensive atmosphere which clung inseparably to me. This was a quite unexpected byproduct of my experience, but gradually it became more manifest until Horiki pointed it out to my amazement and consternation. I had, quite objectively speaking, passed through an apprenticeship in women at the hands of prostitutes, and I had of late become quite adept. The severest apprenticeship in women, they say, is with prostitutes, and that makes it the most effective. The odor of the lady killer had come in to permeate me, and women, not only prostitutes, instinctively detected it and flocked to me. This obscene and inglorious atmosphere was the bonus I received, and it was apparently far more noticeable than the recuperative effects of my apprenticeship. So I'm like, okay, then I guess I'm just gonna read for you guys because you guys really, really like it when I read. Okay, well, like the three of you really like it when I read. So,
Yeah.
welcome, my three viewers. Where did we leave off? I don't even remember. I always put the fucking... I'm supposed to put it in where I leave off, but I always do it vertically. Fuck, man. There's like no paragraph break here. I'm just gonna start from the previous page. Alright, yeah. I went to them to escape from my dread of human beings. He's talking about prostitutes. You know what? Yeah, Josh needs to hear this whole segment on women. I soon came to understand that drink, tobacco, and prostitutes were all excellent means of dissipating, even for a few moments, my dread of human beings. I came even to feel that if I had to sell every last possession to obtain these means of escape, it would be well worth it. That's called drug addiction. I just want to be clear. I never could think of prostitutes as human beings or even as women. Really? Yeah, I need you to hear this incel shit. They seem more like imbeciles or lunatics. And yet you are the one who's always going to them for their... Yes, but he was a communist.
Yeah.
Like, he hung out with them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. They seemed more like imbeciles or lunatics, but in their arms I felt absolute security. I could sleep soundly. It was pathetic how utterly devoid of greed they really were. And perhaps because they felt for me something like an affinity for their kind, these prostitutes always showed me a natural friendliness which never became oppressive. Friendliness with no ulterior motive. Friendliness stripped of high-pressure salesmanship. For someone who might never come again. Some nights I saw these imbecile lunatic prostitutes with the halo of Mary. It sounds like he has respect for him in some way, though. I went to them to escape my dread of human beings, so to seek a mere night of repose, but in the process of diverting myself with these kindred prostitutes, I seem to have acquired before I was aware of it a certain offensive atmosphere which clung inseparably to me. This was a quite unexpected byproduct of my experience, but gradually became more manifest until Horiki, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, I kept calling him Horoki for a long time. It's spelled H-O-R-I, you know what, I don't care. Pointed it out to my amazement and consternation. I had, quite objectively speaking, passed through an apprenticeship in women at the hands of prostitutes, and I had of late become quite adept. The severest apprenticeship in women, they say, is with prostitutes, and what makes it the most effective. The odor of the lady killer had come to permeate me, and women, not only prostitutes, instinctively detected it and flocked. This obscene and inglorious atmosphere was the bonus I received, and it was apparent... What? What? There's an imperfection on the page. Look. Look at the C. And it was apparently far more noticeable than the recuperative effects of my apprenticeship. Horiki informed me of it half as a compliment, I suppose, but it struck a painful chord in me. I remembered how clumsily written letters from bar girls, and... I remembered now, clumsily written letters from bar girls, and the general's daughter, a girl of 20, whose house was next to mine, and who every morning when I went to school was always hovering around her gate, all dressed up for no apparent reason, and the waitress at the steak restaurant who, even when I didn't say a word, and the girl at the tobacco shop I patronized who always would put in the package of cigarettes she handed me, and the woman in the seat next to my... Alright, bro, so, yeah, women want to fuck you. Next. And the time when... And you're fucking oblivious to it. And the time when I was drunk and fell asleep on the streetcar in the middle of the night, and the letter burning with the passion that came unexpectedly from a girl relative to the relative in the country, and the girl, whoever it was, who left a doll, and one she had made herself, for me when I was away. With all of them I had been extremely negative, and the stories had gone no further, remaining undeveloped fragments, but it was an undeniable fact, and not just some foolish delusion on my part, that there lingered about me an atmosphere which could send women into sentimental reveries. It caused me a bitterness akin to shame to have this pointed out by someone like Horiki. At the same time, I suddenly lost all interest in prostitutes. To show off this modernity, I can't think of any other reason. Horiki also told me one day a secret communist meeting. I don't remember exactly what it was called. A reading society, I think. A secret communist meeting may have been for Horiki, just one more sights of Tokyo. I was introduced to the comrades and obliged to pay to buy a pamphlet. I then heard a lecture of Marxian economics delivered by an extraordinarily ugly young man. Commies are ugly. Got it. A guest of honor. Everything he said seemed exceedingly obvious and undoubtedly true, but I felt sure that something more obscure, more frightening lurked in the hearts of human beings. Greed did not cover it, nor did vanity. Nor was it simply a combination of lust and greed. I wasn't sure what it was, but I felt that there was something. Am I recording? Oh, I am. I felt there was something inexplicable at the bottom of human society which was not reducible to economics. After this paragraph, I'm getting high. Terrified as I was by this weird element, I assented to materialism as naturally as water finding its own level. But materialism could not free me from my dread of human beings. I could not feel the joy of hope a man experiences when he opens his eyes on young leaves. Alright, I'm gonna take a hit real quick. Yes, I smoke weed. Yes, I am schizoaffective. No, it doesn't negatively impact me, but yes, it probably does negatively impact many others. And there are quite a few people who are schizoaffective and schizophrenic that smoke weed. I've met them on my forums, schizophrenic forums and stuff, but most of us don't, just to be clear. Like, most don't because it's bad for them, but you can get away with it. I think you can get away with it when you're schizoaffective. I don't know. Alright, where were we at? Nevertheless, I regularly attended the meetings of the Reading Society. I found it uproaring. Where's my reading glasses? I can't see shit. I'm old as fuck. I'm all like, where are my glasses? I found them. That burrito you had was really good. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's better. Nevertheless, I regularly attended the meetings of the Reading Society. I found it uproariously amusing to see my comrades, their faces tense as though they were discussing matters of life and death, absorbed in the study of theories so elementary they were on the order of 1 and 1 makes 2. I tried to take some of the strain out of the meetings with my usual antics. That was why, I imagine, the oppressive atmosphere of the group gradually relaxed. I came to be so popular that I was considered indispensable at the meetings. The simple people perhaps fancied that I was just as simple as they, an optimistic, laughter-loving comrade, but if such was their view, I was deceiving them completely. I was not their comrade, yet I attended every single meeting and performed for them my full repertory of farce. I don't know that word. I feel stupid now. I did it because I like to. What is that fucking word? Hold on, we're looking it up. Wait, is this... God damn it! Boomer moment! Whoa, 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 wait, wait, wait. What does this word mean? Is it repertory? So it's not repertory. It's How do you pronounce this word? Bitch, say it. She's not saying it. I'm pressing the button. And... Why aren't you talking? You whore. The performance of various plays, actors, accompany a regular short... Okay, that makes sense because he's acting. Okay, thank you. I did it because I liked you, because these people pleased me, and not necessarily because we were linked by any common affection derived from Marx. Irrationality. I found the thought faintly pleasurable. Or rather, I felt at ease with it. What frightened me was the logic of the world. In it lay the foretaste of something incalculably powerful. Its mechanism was incomprehensible, and I could not possibly remain closeted in that windowless, bone-chilling room. Though outside lay the sea of irrationality, it was far more agreeable to swim in its waters until presently I drowned. Uh-huh. That's how he died, by the way. People talk of like he threw himself into the ocean or to the river, into a river, I think. People talk of social outcasts. The words apparently denote the miserable losers of the world, the vicious ones. But I feel as though I have been a social outcast from the moment I was born. If I ever meet, relatable. If I ever meet someone society has designated as an outcast, I invariably feel affection for him, an emotion which carries me away in melting tenderness. Yeah, I know that feeling too. I feel bad for like people are like outcasts and shit. People also talk of a criminal consciousness. Ah. Alright, I'm trying to smoke this Delta 8 joint at the same time that I'm reading, and it's not working out that well. Let me just put this out real quick. People talk of social outcasts. The words apparently denote the miserable losers of the world, the vicious ones, but I feel as though I have been a social outcast from the moment I was born. If I ever meet someone society has designated as an outcast, I invariably feel affection for him, an emotion which carries me away in melting tenderness. People also talk of a criminal consciousness. All my life in this world of human beings I have been tortured by such a consciousness, but it has been my faithful companion, like a wife in poverty, and together, just the two of us, we have indulged in our forlorn pleasures. For perhaps this perhaps has been one of the attitudes in which I have gone on living. People also commonly speak of the wound of guilty conscience. In my case, the wound appeared of itself when I was an infant, and with the passage of time, far from healing, it has grown only the deeper, until now it has reached the bone. The agonies I have suffered night after night have made for a hell composed of an infinite diversity of tortures, but, though this is a very strange way to put it, the wound has gradually become dearer to me than my own flesh and blood, and I have thought its pain to be the emotion of the wound as it lived, or even its murmur of affection. For such a person as myself, the atmosphere of an underground movement was curiously soothing and agreeable. What appealed to me, in other words, was not so much its basic aims as its personality. The movement served Horiki merely as a pretext for idiotic banter. The only meeting he attended was the one where he introduced me. He gave as his reason for not coming again the stupid joke that Marxists should study not only the productive aspects of society but the consumptive ones. At any rate, the consumptive aspects were the only ones we observed together. When I think back on it now, in those days, there were Marxists of every variety. Some, like Horiki, called themselves such out of an empty modernity. An attraction for its odor of irrationality led others, like myself, to participate in the movement. I am sure that if true believers in Marxism had discovered what maybe he wasn't really, it's weird because it's like he didn't call himself that, but he seemed to believe what they believed.
Yeah.
And he seemed to think that like he said, like the Marxist theory is it's true, it's simple, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like he seems to agree with it, but he also just thinks these people are fucking idiots.
Yeah.
He thinks everybody's fucking idiots.
Right.
Maybe it's not so much he thinks they're idiots. I think he thinks they're inauthentic. He thinks that the world is full of inauthentic people with expressions, which is funny because he's pretty inauthentic, you know? I am sure that if the true believers in Marxism had discovered what Horiki and I were really interested in, they would have been furious with us and driven us out immediately as vile traitors. Strange to say, however, neither Horiki nor I ever came close to being expelled. On the contrary, I felt so much more relaxed in this irrational world than in the world of rational gentlemen that I was able to do what was expected of me in a sound manner. I was therefore considered a promising comrade and entrusted with various jobs fraught with the ludicrous degrees of secrecy. So he had jobs there and stuff. Yeah, like he was like working for them. As a matter of fact, I never once refused any of their jobs. Curiously docile, I performed whatever they asked of me with such unruffled assurance that the dogs, that was the name by which the comrades referred to the police, we call 'em pigs over here, suspected nothing, and I was never so much as picked up for questioning. Smiling, making others smile, I punctuously acquitted myself of all their dangerous missions. The people in the movement observed such excessive precautions, they were perpetually prey to life and death tensions, as suggest some clumsy imitation of a detective novel. The missions on which I was employed were really of a stupefying inconsequentiality, but the comrades kept themselves worked up into a state of frantic excitement by incessantly reminding themselves how dangerous these errands were. I felt at the time that if I should become a party member and got caught, not even the prospect of spending the rest of my life in prison would bother me. It occurred to me that prison life might actually be pleasanter than groaning away my sleepless nights in a hellish dread of the realities of life as led by human beings. Yeah, okay, sure, till you get there. Alright, that's a good place to stop.